Hey there, Breakdown family. Let me take you back for a moment to a jazz club in Harlem. The year 1925. Langston Hughes just read a new poem that shook the room. And across town, Marcus Garvey is rallying thousands under the red, black, and green flag. And W.E.B. Du Bois is writing about the souls of black folk with a pen that's sharper than any sword. But this wasn't just art. It wasn't just poetry. This was the sound of a political awakening, a cultural explosion so powerful it would echo all the way from Harlem to Montgomery to Accra to Johannesburg. Because here's the truth most people don't realize. The Harlem Renaissance wasn't just a moment in Black American history. It was the spark that helped ignite two of the most important freedom movements of the 20th century, the Civil Rights Movement in the United States and the African liberation movements that swept across the continent in the 1950s and 60s. So today on The Breakdown, we're asking, how did a cultural revolution in Harlem inspire a political revolution around the world? What was the connection between Black thinkers in the U.S. and Africa's independence heroes? And what lessons does this history hold for us today? A time when Black voices, identities, and freedoms are once again under threat. Because here's the thing. If Harlem helped spark a global movement once, maybe it's time we ask, where is the next Harlem? Now, before we dive in, a big welcome to all our new subscribers and members. I'm so glad you're here. This community we're building, it means everything to me because this is how movements start. And every time I read your comments, your ideas, your passion, your drive to make a difference, I'm reminded that change is possible, that our generation isn't asleep. We are wide awake. So we're thrilled you've joined us. And if you're watching and haven't yet, consider this your personal invitation. Because here at Planet Genius TV, we're not just building a channel. We're creating a global home for Black stories that are told with truth, intention, and power. And if that resonates with you, hit subscribe, tap the bell, drop our super thanks, and think about joining our membership community. You get exclusive access to videos, behind-the-scenes conversations, and a front row seat to the dialogue shaping our future. Because this isn't just content, no. It's a movement, and I'd love for you to be a part of it. All right, now let's break it down. So to understand the power of the Harlem Renaissance, you have to understand where it came from. The year was 1918. World War I had just ended. Thousands of Black soldiers came home, many from the South, believing they had earned the right to dignity, to equality, to opportunity. And they poured into one neighborhood that was quickly becoming the center of Black culture in America, Harlem.
In 1910, Harlem was an upper middle class white community. But by 1925, it was known as the Mecca of the new Negro. African Americans came to New York just as they did to many of the great cities of the North, seeking opportunity. During the First World War, their numbers swelled when labor shortages made better paying jobs available for migrants. Those who came to Harlem found a place where they were free for the first time to express themselves in ways that seemed inconceivable before.
Many of these people had not been able to pursue their art, had not been able to pursue the opportunity to become a novelist, to become a jazz musician. It simply was not available and possible for them in the restricted caste system that they were consigned to in the South. Suddenly here in New York, finally, we can be the people that we imagine ourselves to be.
What followed over the next decade was nothing short of extraordinary. We're talking about a cultural explosion. Poets, painters, jazz musicians, scholars, playwrights, fashion designers, philosophers, all redefining what it meant to be Black, not just in America, but in the world.
It would explode into one of the most artistically fertile periods in African American history.
The Harlem Renaissance represents, above all, Black people really for the first time making a claim on being modern as a people. To say that we are here and this is our contribution.
Langston Hughes wrote poems that made you feel the heartbeat of the race. Zora Neale Hurston gave voice to Southern Black womanhood. Aaron Douglas painted us into modernity. And jazz? Oh, that became the sound of Black resistance, alive, unapologetic, and just brilliant.
Here, on 136th Street, in the heart of Harlem, some of the most talented newcomers found a temporary home in a rooming house, which its residents humorously nicknamed Niggerati Manor.
Some of the people that lived there included Eric Walren, the Caribbean novelist and short story writer. Zora Neale Hurston passed through there. Langston Hughes spent time there. They all ended up putting together a kind of salon. It was right here.
Who invented this crazy term, niggerati?
Zora Neale Hurston playing with the term literati and saying, if they're the literati downtown, we must be the niggerati uptown.
But let's be clear. The Harlem Renaissance wasn't just about art for art's sake. It was political. It was defiant. It was about reclaiming identity in a world that tried to erase us. And the thinkers behind it knew exactly what they were doing. W.E.B. Du Bois called for the talented 10th to lead the race. Marcus Garvey from Jamaica launched a global movement from Harlem, calling for Black economic power, Black pride, and even a return to Africa. This wasn't just cultural pride. This was strategy. Harlem became the intellectual headquarters of Black liberation, a hub where artists, activists, and organizers built the ideas that would shape revolutions. Those ideas didn't stay in Harlem. They moved. They took root in churches in Montgomery, in the courtrooms of Thurgood Marshall, in the marches of Selma and Birmingham. The civil rights movement didn't begin in the streets, no. It began in the stories, the art, and the consciousness Harlem helped create. Because once you've defined yourself for yourself, you're no longer waiting for permission to be free. Now let's bring this full circle. The Harlem Renaissance didn't just spark poetry or politics. It sparked a mindset shift, one that traveled across oceans and generations. It told us we are more than what the world says we are. We are more than colonized, more than enslaved, more than poor. We are creators. We are thinkers. We are the architects of our future. And today, that message is even more relevant than ever. Because we're in another renaissance right now, whether we realize it or not. A digital Harlem, powered by TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter. A new wave of African and diaspora creators building platforms, telling our stories, reclaiming our narratives. From Lagos to Atlanta, Nairobi to New York, Accra to Paris. We're writing again. We're organizing again. We're resisting again. But just like Harlem in the 1920s, the question remains, will we just express our pain, or will we use our culture to build real power? Because the artists of the Harlem Renaissance didn't just sing about injustice. They shaped a political imagination that made change possible. That's our charge now, to make sure this moment isn't wasted, to make sure our voices don't just go viral, but go deep, to connect the dots between what we create and what we demand. Because when we understand our power, when we remember our global story, our shared history, our connections, we stop asking for freedom and we start building it. One of the most powerful legacies of the Harlem Renaissance was this. It reminded us that Black people are everywhere. And when we move together, we are unstoppable. This wasn't just a cultural moment. It was a global awakening. Harlem lit a match, but the flame spread to Accra, to Kingston, to Johannesburg, to Port-au-Prince. And nearly a century later, we saw that same global flame reignite. Remember just a few weeks ago, April 2025, when news broke of an attempted coup in Burkina Faso. In an instant, the internet lit up. No, not just in West Africa, but in London, in Atlanta, in Paris, in Toronto, in Jamaica, in Barbados. People from across the African world rallied online and offline to support President Ibrahim Traoré, a 36-year-old leader who has become a symbol of African sovereignty, youth power, and anti-colonial resistance. They weren't just supporting a man, they were defending a vision of Africa that is not dictated by France, that is not auctioning off its minerals, that is not waiting for permission to rise. And here's what's powerful. Much like Nkrumah in the 1950s or Mandela in the 90s, Traoré's message hit a nerve, not just in Burkina Faso, but across the entire Black world. People saw him and said, that's what leadership should look like. Because when the diaspora sees an African leader breaking the mold, standing firm, speaking truth to global power, we know that moment matters. And that's the legacy of Harlem still in motion. When Harlem raised its voice in the 1920s, it didn't just change New York. It helped birth a revolution in Accra. It shaped dreams in Dakar. It gave language to rebellion in Kingston. And in 2025, when people in Chicago, Lagos, and London stood with Burkina Faso, we were reminded again, we are each other's greatest weapon, each other's greatest hope. And when we move together, Africa and its diaspora, we are a force. The question is, what are we going to build together next? So let's bring this home. The Harlem Renaissance wasn't just about jazz clubs and poetry. It was about reclaiming identity on our own terms. It was about art as resistance, culture as a weapon, imagination as revolution. And in 2025, that fight isn't over. We are once again living in a time of global reckoning, a time when Black people are redefining who we are, what we want, and where we're going. But here's the warning Harlem leaves us with. Art without power, culture without infrastructure, pride without policy, it all fades. That's why this Renaissance, the one we're living through right now, has to be different. Because yes, we have TikTok. Yes, we have Afrobeat and Black Hollywood and diaspora conferences and hashtag Wakanda Forever. But do we have institutions? Do we have ownership? Do we have unity that's rooted not just in vibes, in what's trending, in what's viral, but that's rooted in vision? Because what the Harlem Renaissance sparked and what African liberation leaders finished was built on shared struggle and shared strategy. So if you're watching this right now in Nairobi or Baltimore or Kingston or Johannesburg or Namibia, ask yourself, where's your Harlem? What stories are you creating? What power are you building? Because we are the legacy of Harlem. We are the fulfillment of Nkrumah's dream. We are the generation that can finally bridge the gap between cultural pride and political, economic power. And we're running out of time to get it right. So family, here's what I want you to walk away with. The Harlem Renaissance wasn't just a moment in history. It was a moment fueled by art, sharpened by politics, and carried by people who believed that Black freedom wasn't a dream. It was a movement fueled by art, sharpened by politics, and carried by people who believed that Black freedom wasn't a dream. It was a plan. And today, that plan is still unfolding. From the voices rising in Accra, to the entrepreneurs in Lagos, to the artists in Atlanta, the activists in Cape Town, the scholars in Barbados, all over the world, we are living in another renaissance. But the question is, will we do more with it this time? Will we build institutions, not just moments? Will we support our own innovations, not just admire them from afar? Will we finally connect the threads from Harlem to Harare, from Brooklyn to Bamako, and turn culture into coordinated power? That's the call. And I want to hear from you. Drop a comment. What does the modern day Harlem Renaissance look like to you? And what role do you want to play in it? And if this episode stirs something in you, don't just scroll, hit subscribe, tap the bell, share this with someone who needs to know this history. And if you're ready to go deeper, don't just watch, join us. Become a part of our membership community where we go deeper beyond the headlines, where we analyze the world we imagine and build the future we deserve together. Because history isn't just something we study. They're actually not teaching our history anymore in school. So it's something that we have to shape and that we have to be intentional about. That's it for today's show. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you were as inspired as I was in doing my research and bringing this story to you. Until next time, take care. Hey you! Thanks so much for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and join the family. Also, visit face2faceafrica.com for your daily news and updates on what's going on within the global Black community so you can stay informed.